Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Amber Unfiltered. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about cults, and I know that's a very sensitive, layered topic, but I'm actually really fascinated by them. I know that there was a lot of traumatic and abusive things that happen in them, but I think more so I'm fascinated by the psychology and why they keep happening. This is a topic I'm actually pretty passionate about, but I don't think I share enough on here, and I've been watching a lot of content involving it. And I actually see a lot of similarities between cults and like murder docs, like cult docs and murder docs, and just the similarities as far as like the psychology goes as to how people can become victims of either or. Not to make light of that, but before I do that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you want to cash at me at Amber Unfiltered Show, that'd be greatly appreciated. So I recently my love of this, or my fascination with this, became kind of like reinvigorated because I feel like Netflix has been dropping some bangers. Like they've been dropping some really good docs. And I started watching the Nature Boy doc on Hulu. So I think the first one, what was the name of the documentary? Netflix doc on, what was that guy's name on cult recently dropped? I can't remember the name of it. Of course, now I'm drawing a hard blank. Yes. Okay. So there's one. Yes. I'm about to tell y'all what the name of it. Yes. This is one. My mouth was on the floor. So there was one that dropped in April. It dropped April 8th on Netflix called Trust Me, The False Prophet. I binged that at work because I get an hour for lunch at work. And I was like, oh my God. At first, I had tried to watch it at home one day and I wasn't feeling it because I feel like one of the main Christine Marie, which is the lady that basically went undercover because she was former FLDS, I believe, or former FLDS, if I'm not mistaken. Her and her husband basically went undercover and exposed this sect or section of a cult. But yeah, it was insane. Who was the guy? Samuel Bateman, excuse me, I couldn't remember his name. But actually, my physical therapist told me to give it a rewatch, and she was like, you'll really like it, because she's always recommending stuff to me. We always talk about TV in our sessions and movies, but mostly TV, because she's a huge TV fan as well. So she was like, no, girl, give it another chance. So this one is about Sam Bateman. He basically rose to power after Warren Jeffs kind of fell from grace, for lack of a better word. And he created his own little section, and he was like very unliked. He was very unpopular, but somehow he rebranded and reshaped himself, publicly, and he was marrying underage women, and it was sick. So yes, this lady named Christine Marie and her husband, what was his name? Toga Kadas. I think he was like Greek or something like that. The wife used to be in a cult, and so she got out. So she was trying to dedicate her life's work to helping other people get out. So they went undercover and they filmed Sam Bateman and all of his wives. He had like 20 to 25 wives. A lot of them were underage. He was marrying siblings of people. He was marrying mothers of some of the girls that he was married to, and he had a lot of fucking kids. Like, it was really, really sick. And then he had like whole families like falling apart, like basically trading. Like, I think he decimated whole families. I know he did. It was really disturbing. And I was like, how does someone do this? But I realized a lot of it is unfortunately conditioning and brainwashing. While this is probably a controversial thing, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, I do think that there is some structure and order to be found in, okay, you can wear these clothes, you can eat this diet. I do think there may be an emphasis on health in some regards, and it gives some structure, but then it's so strict and so restricting that I think that's where it crosses the line, and it takes away like agency and autonomy. And I think that's where I have a problem with these types of groups. And again, I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but that's just my 2 cents. But that documentary opened my eyes. I think it was 3 episodes long. So I watched that, and then did I watch something else? Oh yeah, I watched what was it called? Was it called Unchosen on Netflix? And that one was good. It was like similar content, like it was recommended. So I watched that. I was like, oh, this is tea. It's the show on Netflix that's something similar but slightly different. So it has 1 season. I think it was like 6 episodes if I'm not mistaken. So basically it's this cult overseas. It's fictional, overseas in like the UK. And it's like this young mother, young wife. She's living in a sheltered like bubble in a sheltered cult, and her daughter, and she's married. She's like in these confines of like marriage and motherhood and just lives her life a very specific way. You know what it kind of reminded me of? I don't know if y'all remember from Divergent, the Amity faction, where they're like all peace, love, and hair grease. They live in like apple orchards. They grow their own food. They're very kind. They're very generous. Like they always put other people first. They kind of remind me of that. And they wear their hair a very specific way. Like they'll have like a little bit of tendrils out, but then the rest of it's covered by like a bandana. They wear very loose fitting clothing. You know, they're supposed to submit to their husbands in every way. Their work is dictated for them. Like every part of their life is dictated. So it's like they don't even know what they want. A lot of them are married young. They have children young. So she's married. She has one kid, and it appears she may be struggling with fertility to conceive more kids, but she really seems to love being a mom. And so her daughter, there's a rainstorm that comes, so all of them go inside, and her daughter wanders off, and her daughter is deaf. So she falls into a lake or a river, and this like hot stranger rescues her. But he's actually like an escaped like convict or felon, and he just like decimates their lives. But I thought it was interesting, like how like the infrastructure of the cult dictated everything, and then the stranger kind of upends all of that, but then he inserts himself in the cult and he rises to power, and he manipulates and fights his way tooth and nail, even though he's literally on the run from the law. So then I watched that, and then what did I watch after that? I think I tried to watch the Nature Boy doc on Hulu. I feel like I was watching some other stuff, but there's a reason why I'm going through this. I can't remember the name of the Nature Boy doc. So then I watched The Cult of Nature Boy on Hulu because Jesse Wu recommended it highly. And I had never heard of this story. A lot of people apparently knew about it, but I was like, damn, I must have been living under a rock because I never heard of him. And I was like, I've never seen a documentary on a Black cult leader, even though I know that they exist. And I had to turn the Nature Boy doc off because I just couldn't believe that people were falling for this. And I feel like Nature Boy used a lot of he used very specific buzzwords, and he used a certain charm, and he used a certain agenda or belief system to lure people there. And I thought that was really evil. And it was just heinous, the stuff that he was doing, but also the stuff that his recruits were doing and the things that they were doing to women was just really disturbing to me. So I'm saying all this to say, not that that's funny, but I just laughing nervously, but I say all this to say it kind of reinvigorated I've always been curious about people's behavior and like psychology and like how trauma informs people and how trauma, you know, if it shows up early on in your life, how does it affect your adult life? Because I feel like a lot of us do have a lot of unresolved trauma, and a lot of us either are sorting through it or are not. But again, like I said, I've always been fascinated by people's behavior. When I was a kid, I was a loner, and I was very shy, and I was very awkward and introverted. So what I would do is I would just watch people. I would just look at them, and I would just, if they started telling me stuff, I started piecing stuff together, and I started dictating. It was like I created like a profile, you know, almost, because I was like, oh, you told me that this happened to you, or that somebody said this to you and it caused this reaction. I was just very curious. I was like, why do people do the things that they do? I low-key wanted to be a therapist at one point, but then I was like, bro, I don't want to spend all that time in school. I was like, I don't want to spend all that money. Like, I'm trying to get married, have a family, and all the things. And I just didn't want to be in school that long. And I was like, bro, the loan's a loan. But maybe when I have a midlife crisis, maybe I'll do that. I do actually want to get my PhD like at some point. So maybe it is in the cards for me, God willing. But I was like, damn, I was like, how did these people fall for this? And I've watched so many documentaries on cults and murders. And I think there's definitely a thread there. But I was like, why do people keep falling for this? How does this keep happening? And so I was like, I'm going to read about it. So I looked up like top books about cults, like the psychology behind them, why they happen, why they keep happening, how people could become susceptible to them. Because we're all like, oh, that would never be me. But I think it's actually easier said than done. And I think once you're in it, like once you're alert to it, it's like it's almost too late because they done got you in their clutches. It almost reminds me of a toxic relationship, because even I was watching Worst Ex Ever season 2. Even seeing the Wade Wilson like / Deadpool unaliver, like he used his charm for deceit, for evil, for bad. Like it was the same thing with Nature Boy. He had the gift of gab. A lot of cult leaders or people with bad intentions or ill intentions, they use their tongue and they use their looks to get what they want. And that's really sick to me, because I'm like, if only you use that in an ethical or legal way, you would actually be fine. You know what I'm saying? So then I started looking up books. And me and my husband both looked on ChatGPT at the same time, and this was one that came up. So I think I mentioned this on my if you guys have been watching my like reels or shorts or whatever, I've been making them just randomly, like when I go to the movies or like when I cook or something or when I read. But it's called Cults in Our Midst, The Continuing Fight Against Their Hidden Menace by Margaret Thaler Singer, or Thaler Singer. And she breaks it down in such a way, I kind of got stuck because there was one part that I was like, okay, this is a little dry or a little hard to read. But I'm trying to go back to this one part so I can like read it to you guys. Where was it? Oh man, hold on. There was like a really good section that I was like, damn, this is like cults to the T. And it made me think of Sam Bateman from that Trust Me, False Prophet. She like breaks it down in such a way that, okay, hold on. I was trying to find it. Like the traits. I think she broke it down in like, oh, maybe it's not in here. Hold on. I remember reading it. Yes. Okay. I think it was right here. I wanted to read this to you guys because I was like, oh my gosh. So, okay. So, let me see. Do I want to read this part? I think I might skip ahead. Hold on, because I had a point. Okay, so I was reading this to my husband. He was like, damn, that's it to the T. So it's on page 8 of her book. So it says, in most cases, there is one person, typically the founder, at the top of the cult structure, and decision-making centers in him. And notice she said him. There are female cult leaders, but I definitely feel like there's more male cult leaders. And it says it in this next little blurb. It says, there are some female cult leaders, but most are male. And so for simplicity, cult leaders will be referred to as male throughout this book. These leaders typically have the following characteristics. 1, cult leaders are self-appointed persuasive persons who claim to have a special mission in life or to have special knowledge. It's like they're the chosen one. For example, leaders of flying saucer cults often claim that beings from outer space have commissioned them to lead people to special places to await a spaceship. And I definitely see this in a lot of the documentaries I watch. Other leaders claim to have rediscovered ancient ways to produce enlightenment or cure disease, while yet others claim to have developed inventive, scientific, humanistic, or social plans that will lead followers to new levels of awareness, success, or personal and political power. That's what I saw a lot of in the Trust Me, False Prophet. It was like, you're basically going to get to heaven. Your soul is going to be like golden, basically. And I was like, that's such a personal, sacred thing to dangle in front of someone. And it's like, then you can get them to do whatever you want. This man literally had like men of the family, male leaders of the family, giving up their wives, giving up their kids, like trading them like baseball cards. It was fucking disgusting. Okay, so the next one, number 2, cult leaders tend to be determined and domineering and are often described as charismatic, which I think charisma is like a big thing that people use to take advantage of other people. And that's really sick to me. That's twisted. These leaders need to have enough personal drive, charm, or other pulling power to attract control and manage their flocks. They persuade devotees to drop their families, jobs, careers, and friends to follow them. Overtly or covertly, in most cases, they eventually take over control of their followers' possession, money, and lives. And that's something I saw again in Trust Me, False Prophet. Like, I was like, he's not even attractive, but he just knows exactly what to say. He knows exactly what to do. And a lot of them did drop their families. A lot of them did drop their belief systems and just their routine and their normal way of life. And I also saw in the Nature Boy doc, he was taking people's passports. He was taking people's debit and credit cards, cell phones. I mean, he was using them to buy purchases that were so lavish and unnecessary. And it was sick. I think one guy said in the Nature Boy doc that he took his credit card and spent it on like an $800 pool table or something crazy like that. And it's like, that's not necessary. Aren't you supposed to be detached from worldly possessions or material objects? Like, that didn't make any sense. It kind of goes against your teaching, but it's like, it's only okay if they do it. Another part was that cult leaders center veneration on themselves. Priests, rabbis, ministers, democratic leaders, and leaders of genuinely altruistic movements keep the veneration of adherents focused on God, abstract principles, or the group's purpose. Cult leaders, in contrast, keep the focus of love, devotion, and allegiance on themselves. They make you codependent on them and dependent. In many cults, for example, spouses are forced to separate, which I saw a lot of in the Samuel Bateman doc, or parents forced to give up their children as a test of their devotion to their leader. And that's exactly what he had them doing. And I was like, all y'all need to be underneath of the jail. And they are now, so that's fine. I mean, this book is so good because it just breaks it down in such a simple way. It's not like overtly clinical. I do need to get back into it, but it like opened my eyes because I was like, I really want to know why they're a thing. Another thing it said in this book was that cults kind of arise as a form of, like, when there's like social unrest or just social injustices and things like that, they form because they kind of fill that gap of, because it makes us not believe, it makes us weary of the world. And right now the world is in a very dark place. It's hard to find joy, but I encourage you guys to find joy and find things that make you happy, no matter how big or how small. But I was like, that is definitely true. It's like the collapse in some ways of the social norms or the social like flow or like feng shui. And I was just like, that definitely makes sense. And then I started reading this book. This book is so freaking insane. It's called Breaking Free: How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and My Father, Warren Jeffs. And it's by Rachel Jeffs. Y'all know who Warren Jeffs is. I don't need to get into that. But I really wanted to hear from someone who actually survived it. I really hope that, I think was her name Gnomes from Trust Me, False Prophet. I hope she writes a book. I really want to hear her story. I think she has such a powerful testimony and she could really help a lot of people. If you saw like her transition from being like his number one worshiper to like now she's so far removed, she like did jail time for this man. It was insane. And Trust Me, False Prophet, he had these girls kidnapping the other sister wives, and like a lot of them went to jail. A lot of them still believe in him, still worship him, still follow him. I'm like, that's insane. But like, he literally ruined all these women's lives, honestly. But this book was so good too. Like, Rachel Jeffs breaks down, like, unfortunately her dad was assaulting her, unfortunately he was grooming her, but then how she basically has no voice, how everything is dictated, how they wear their hair, what color outfit they wear, what type of outfit they wear, when they eat, what they can eat, how they were punished. She even talks about how difficult it was for her being a sister wife. She was like, I was so loved and adored by my husband, but he already had 3 or 4 wives and he already had 3 or 4 kids. And I was like, I couldn't imagine the jealousy, the insecurity I would feel. Like, that would be a hit to my ego, a blow to my ego. But I don't know, I just wanted to talk about it. I actually really feel like I'm gonna write a research paper on cults. I really want to do an in-depth, like, really well-researched paper on it, because I was like, this is so fascinating to me. And it's not fascinating to me that people get hurt. It's just fascinating, what would draw someone in, how they get sucked in, how they break free, and how they don't break free, because some people don't break free at all, and that's really sad to me as well. So I said, and I plugged into Google, typical factors of cults and the psychology behind them. It says cults are groups characterized by absolute authoritarianism, isolation from society, and exploitation of members. And that's what this other book talks about. Cults in Our Midst is the book I'm referring to. They rely on psychological manipulation, such as love bombing and information control, to strip away individual identity and critical thinking, which is another thing I said to my husband. I said, you have to basically be a sheep. Like, I'm so glad I can critically think. I think critical thinking is a dying art, and I think a lot of people can't think for themselves. They use other sources such as people, media, and things like that. And it's like, it's good to be informed, don't get me wrong, and you can definitely take and learn what you can, but think and challenge for yourself. I think that's something that's going away in this world, unfortunately, especially with AI and especially with social media. And now we just communicate through our phone, which is ironic because I'm recording this. But yeah, it says fostering intense dependency on a charismatic leader, which again, I saw in all these different, the Trust Me, False Prophet, Unchosen, the Nature Boy doc, even some of the murder docs that I watch, it's like the same behavior. Like, I was so shocked at Wade Wilson and how he was able to get away with his behavior, but I was like, it was his desirability, it was his attractiveness according to them, but then his charm. And he even said, I use my charm and I use my looks to do bad. And it's just like, unfortunately, a lot of people got hurt as a result. So it says authoritarian leadership. A singular charismatic leader demands unquestioning obedience and positions themselves as the ultimate source of truth, which I think is very, very dangerous. But if you are already raised to be like that and then you meet another figure like that, I could see how it's so easy to fall right back into that pattern. Like, I was thinking of Gnomes from Trust Me, False Prophet. I was like, she has literally been conditioned. You trust the man of the house. You trust what your family is telling you, the leader of your family. You don't question it. You just do. You just obey. Just obey and just submit. And I was like, that's hard, because it's been drilled into her for so long and she don't know anything else. And I don't think her parents had custody of her either. So I was like curious about, I think her dad got like excommunicated from the church or the group, if I'm not mistaken. It says isolation and control. Members are systematically cut off from family, friends, and mainstream society to eliminate outside perspectives. That's because they know they'll be challenged, and they'll probably get the members out instead of using the members for what they need them for, whether it's information, money, labor. And that's another thing I noticed. Trust me, false prophets, so much labor. Like they were like sewing, building houses from scratch, running whole businesses. I mean, in doing very intricate, hard, labor intensive work. I noticed that in the Nature Boy doc as well. I was just like, that's so cool. They get all this free work, but they benefit from it. They make millions and millions of dollars from it. It's really sick. It says us versus them mentality. The group creates an insular reality portraying the outside world as dangerous, corrupted, or persecutory. Exploitation. Leaders leverage followers for financial gain, labor, or sexual compliance, often shielding operations from financial transparency. So then it creates this wedge and this divide, and that's sick to me. And then it says doctrinal purity. There is zero tolerance for doubt, questioning, or critical inquiry, which I said critical thinking kind of goes in line with that. Disagreements are met with shunning or harsh disciplinary measures. It says the psychology behind cults. Vulnerability, exploitation. Cults often target individuals during times of transition, stress, or crisis, or when they are actively seeking belonging, purpose, or answers. Me and my husband had a conversation about this several weeks ago, and I was like, I think the biggest thing I keep seeing in a lot of these docs, it's like a full circle, or I just see a circle just kind of repeating itself, is belonging. People don't know who they are, and they want somewhere to belong. They want to fit in. They want to be accepted, and they don't have many places to go. And the Nature Boy doc, one girl, she literally just cut off her phone, blocked off her family, and just flew to Costa Rica or wherever he was at. And I was like, that's such an intense thing to do. But when you're in that period where you don't know who you are, you're stressed trying to figure out your next steps, who you want to be, what you want to be, that can be the perfect time for someone to come in and manipulate you and persuade you and convince you, and then you don't even know what you're signing up for. And that's really sad to me, because I've had periods of my life where I feel like I didn't belong, but I thank God, knock on wood, I never ended up in a cult or a situation similar, because even throughout like the not knowing, the doubt, and the self-doubt creeping in, and just the questioning God in some aspect or some sense, like I still know myself, and I'm still rooted, and I still have values and morals, and like I know what those are, and I can identify them. But I'm also very self-aware, and I read the room, but I also look at other people. I don't just look at myself. So it says love bombing, the use of intense, immediate affection and flattery. This creates a rapid, intoxicating sense of community that lowers a recruit's natural defenses. That's something I saw in the Nature Boy doc, which is what he did with, what was that girl's name? Velvet. I don't remember. What's her name? Eliana. I think he renamed her because he would always rename his recruits. She flew there to meet, I think she flew to Costa Rica to date and be with another recruit. And he somehow love bombed her into being with him. And then she became like his queen. But then he would use her to sleep with other women. And that was just so sick. Women who weren't attracted to him, women who vocally expressed to him, hey, I'm here for so-and-so. But then he would swoop in and steal that connection from another man. That's sick to me. It's like he wanted to be the alpha, and that's really disturbing. So it says coercive persuasion, or it could also be referred to as brainwashing. Prolonged manipulation and sensory overload deprivation techniques such as forced chanting, exhaustion, and rigid diets. The diets in freaking the Nature Boy doc, and him like making them fertilize their produce with their own number 2 was so crazy to me. But even in the Trust Me False Prophet, everything was like grown. It was very specific quantities. It was very specific things that they could and could not eat. They couldn't eat like sugar and processed food and listen to secular music. It's all just control. It's about power and control, and how they can weaponize that to gain for their favor, or for their wants, their desires, their needs. Is really sad. So it says this overload limits the brain's capacity for critical thinking, inducing heightened suggestibility. Attachment theory. Cult dynamics mirror abusive relationships. I feel like I said this earlier. By controlling all resources, safety, and social bonds, leaders force members into a dependent state of trauma bonding. It's like you don't know anything else. Like no one else is going to love you. No one else is going to look out for you. But it's like someone else will, and they won't do it in this way. Because love does not equal abuse. Love does not equal control, and love is not about power. It's really about unity. So it says de-individuation and conformity. Social pressure and the intense desire to fit in encourage members to abandon personal ethics in favor of the group's collective will. And that's when you start to lose your sense of identity and your sense of self, and the things that make you you. You start to lose like your own DNA, essentially. So I said, how can someone in a cult heal from that experience? Healing from a cult requires unlearning patterns of coercive control, rebuilding self-trust, and reclaiming personal autonomy, which I believe will take a lot of time. Because cults often isolate members and heavily dictate their realities, recovery is a gradual step-by-step process that often involves specialized therapy, community support, and a total rediscovery of identity. So it says, number one, seek trauma-informed mental health care, Working with a mental health professional who is specifically trained in religious and spiritual trauma is highly recommended. Effective therapies focus on restoring critical thinking, untangling imposed beliefs, and processing trauma. Because you probably don't even feel like yourself. You probably almost feel like a puppet and someone's pulling the strings, I would imagine. I couldn't imagine what this is like. I prayed for all those people in the Trust Me False Prophet documentary, because I was like, that's tough. That's really tough to get out of, and it's tough to work through because it's going to affect your everyday life, I believe. Therapy approaches, methods like EMDR, which I've tried and it actually does work, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and CBT, which I've also tried, cognitive behavioral therapy, are incredibly effective for untangling phobias and processing traumatic memories. So basically with EMDR, the therapist will take an object, it could be like a pen or something else. Hold on, I'm gonna turn my heater off. Hold on, y'all, I'm sorry about that. I'm starting to get toasty now. I got freaking like suede velvet pants on. I don't know why I did that, because it'd be making me sweat. But my old therapist that I had for almost 10 years, he used to do it. So he would put like a pen in front of me and he would go, and you follow with your eyes, and then you talk through a traumatic memory, and then you replace that memory with a healing, more clean image. And that kind of helps bring the stress levels down and like the panic and just the fear associated with that. It really does work. It's very weird, but it does have it has a good outcome, I would say. So it says, it also talks about where you can find, okay, I'll share this. It says, finding a professional. You can locate vetted trauma-informed clinicians through directories on the Reclamation Collective or the International Cultic Studies Association, which I didn't know. Number two, it says connect with fellow survivors. Isolation is a primary tool cults use to maintain control. Connecting with others who have had similar experiences can be an invaluable source of validation and strength. Support groups. Survivors often find solace in dedicated peer-led spaces. Organizations such as People Leave Cults offer facilitated support groups tailored specifically to the needs of former high control group members. And then number three, rebuild your autonomy and critical thinking. In a cult, independent thought is often heavily discouraged or punished. So that to me tells me that you can't critically think because you're punished for it. Oh, excuse me. Or you're probably outcast, you're probably shunned. So it's like, I better get in where I fit in type of thing. And it definitely could be, that could also create like a catty or a bullying type environment as well. It says, allow yourself to explore your own personal values. Oh no, let me go back. Did I read that part? Okay, hold on. Let me go back because I can't remember. In a cult, independent thought is often heavily discouraged or punished. Healing involves actively practicing making your own decisions. And I think that even applies to like an abusive childhood or an abusive environment growing up, because again, independent thought is not encouraged. You're supposed to go with the thought of your abuser or the person causing the trauma. So when you get older, it's like you have to rediscover yourself. You have to figure out what you like. And unfortunately, because I went through some abuse when I was younger, I kind of went through this. I was like, oh, the thing that I was told not to like, I actually really enjoy, like something simple. I know this is so crazy, and not to shit on my parents, but my dad used to be like, oh, flowers are like for old white people. And I actually really like flowers. Like I love flowers on my clothes. I love flowers just around the house. I love things like with flower designs. So I have a lot of flower stuff. Another thing, he used to shit on Red Lobster. He'd be like, that's like, you know, N-word-ish. And I was just like, I actually really like Red Lobster. It's really good. But he looked down on it. And I was just like, I really didn't understand why. Like, if people love Red Lobster, they love Red Lobster. A lot of Black people love seafood. Our ancestors came from the sea. They came from the water. We descend from Black watermen. So that's not... Also, sidebar, I found this really good documentary. I've been watching like a lot of documentaries, which is so crazy. But one day, it was like a Friday night. Remember, it's Friday night. I'm so dumb. But I was like sitting at home on a Friday night. It was like, I think it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was just scrolling through, and I love PBS. I watch PBS like every day. That's how I know I'm old. But PBS be having the clutch cooking shows, and they have really good docs. So I was just clicking around, and I see this documentary, and it was talking about Black watermen. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It's called Water's Edge, Black Watermen of the Chesapeake, and it chronicles the 400-year history of African-American maritime pioneers. So it says it explores how generations of Black watermen navigated the Chesapeake Bay's complex waters, first as enslaved laborers seeking freedom and later as independent captains, oystermen, and seafood magnets. And it was so inspiring. It was so cool. But like I said, like I really didn't have like a lot of flexibility growing up to like really pick and choose what I wanted. And now I'm able to do that. And I'm like, oh, I like this, I like that. And I really realized I love learning. I'm a very curious person. I like to know all the things. I like to learn different things. I like to hear about different things. But you're like closed off in a box, and it's similar to a cult because there's no room for like independent or self-expression. Like you just have to kind of go with the leader or the figurehead. And it's really hard because you really don't know yourself. You really don't get the chance. So then after you leave that environment, then you have the chance to. But it takes a very, very long time, I will say. Like I feel like I'm finally starting to know who I am at 31. And I was like, I know I have so much more to go, but I'm starting to feel more rooted in who I am. And I'm starting to realize like what's actually important. I'd be like, damn, why did I care about that? It's not important. But anyway, so it says educational. Did I read that part? Oh my gosh, I cannot remember. I have horrible memories sometimes. I be having brain fog. But it says, take it slow. Allow yourself to explore your own personal values, hobbies, and day-to-day preferences without the pressure of an overarching doctrine. Educational resources. Reading about coercive influence in the psychology of cults can help you intellectually understand the abuse you experienced, shifting self-blame toward a broader objective perspective, which probably takes a lot of time too. And it says number 4, practice somatic or mind-body grounding. Cults often foster disconnection from the body. Yes, I definitely believe that because you're going against your natural instinct, your intuition, your discernment, which these things are all hardwired in the body to protect you, in my opinion. By demanding obedience and limiting physical autonomy. Rebuilding a compassionate relationship with your physical self through mindfulness, breath work, or gentle movement can significantly aid your nervous system in regulating after sustained fear and stress. And especially if it's over prolonged periods of time, do you know what that does to the human body? It probably breaks it down almost like a car or a car engine. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that. I don't know. I thought I had so many more points, but I think my points were pretty much made. But it's interesting, but it's really disturbing at the same time. And I'm just like, how does this keep happening? Like for real, I'm going to say it now. This is probably really controversial or crazy. And I don't mean this in like a conspiracy theory way. I truly believe this. And I know my thoughts or my beliefs are not fact. I'll just say that. But I really believe that there's going to be a cult coming about soon. Like there's probably one in the works now, or there's probably going to be one coming out soon. I don't know why I feel that. After I've been watching all this content, I was like, oh, what's happening in the world right now? I was like, bro, something's going to happen. Something's going to break, and people are going to weaponize that and manipulate it to their benefit or their gain. I was like, I'm calling it now. I was like, I don't know what it would be called. I don't know how many people they're going to be able to recruit, but I was like, people need to keep their head on a swivel and like really trust yourself and really trust your instinct. And if something feels off, don't listen to it. Get out. Please get out safely. I know that's sometimes hard to do, especially when you have things taken from you that kind of give you that autonomy to leave a situation or to escape a situation. But I really am praying for people out there because I know it's not easy, and it's probably it can happen to anyone. We all say that, oh, it would never be me, but you really don't know. Don't say never could, shoulda, coulda, woulda, because like it really could. It could happen to me, knock on wood. I hope that it doesn't, but just keep sharp, critical think. If something doesn't feel right in your gut, like I said, your body will tell you before anything else if something is off or if it's not. But I just really wanted to talk about that. I was like, damn, this is so fascinating to me. I was like, I'm getting back in my documentary bag. I'm getting back in my I just said that. I'm just getting back in my curiosity bag and my learning bag. And I'm just like, I take away so much from this. And it's sad to me that this keeps happening and that this is like a cycle that keeps repeating itself. And I just be feeling bad because before I used to be like, oh, these people are stupid. But it's like, they're not stupid. They're being preyed on. They're around a wolf thinking it's a sheep and they're about to get slaughtered. Like they don't know any better. And sometimes it's like, if you already have pre-existing beliefs that are kind of in alignment with those, why wouldn't they listen to that? They don't know anything else. I wasn't raised in a religious atmosphere in the sense of like a FODS or anything like that. I was raised Christian, but I still have some room for freedom, within limitation. But could you imagine everything being dictated from when you were yay small till now, and you literally don't know anything else? So I'm like, I don't really blame them. I don't really call them stupid or look down on them anymore. But I was definitely watching the Nature Boy dog. Like they actually fell for this, but I'm like, it was what they wanted to hear. And another thing I think I said in another video was that I told my mom, people love delusion and they love lies. They love the illusion of something. They love the package of something, but it's like, look past the package, look past the curtain, look at the interiority. What does it actually mean? What does it actually entail? Ask questions, ask more questions. Like, we're just not in that world or that space anymore. But I'm so glad I critically think and I trust myself and I try to move in the world accordingly so that, you know, I have some good karma coming my way. But anyways, I don't know where I was going with that. Hopefully this video made sense. I love you guys and I'll see you later. Bye.